Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Thursday night coverage of the Stars and Stripes throwback season of Season 6. Tonight on Freaky Fast Broadcasting, we give you the last race of the round of 8 to set the stage. Who is running for a championship? As it's your Distillery 200 here at Kentucky Speedway. It's going to be a good one here tonight. Drivers are looking quick. As you can see in our ticker board, the drivers in red, those are your 8 drivers that are still challenging to win here tonight and have an opportunity to be in our final 4, as no one officially coming into tonight is locked in. Anyone could get pointed out, knocked out if someone outside of our top 4 wins. Plenty of different opportunities and storylines to build up throughout tonight. Well, taking you on this journey is going to be myself, Sam Dyer, as well as Zach Hall. Zach, once again last week, an incredible run. We got to see Juan Jimenez win again as he takes a win away and potentially a slot away from one of these drivers that's trying to make it into the final 4.
You got to feel for Andrew Hess last week. He was so good. Juan Jimenez caught everybody off guard with that strategy, stretched it out, and made it work, man. I mean, that dude has been amazing. If he would have been in the playoffs, I mean, you could have seen him go through both rounds with a win in each round. So it's been impressive to see from him so far, but we'll have to see. Can he steal another one away from one of these drivers trying to lock themselves in? Because everybody here has a shot tonight, all 8 drivers here. It's going to be fun to watch as they head into qualifying now.
As qualifying could be a very important factor for these drivers. Passing could be treacherous later on in the race, but track position, let's find out where they're going to be starting here tonight as drivers get ready for this race. Again, we got 8 drivers entering into this race. Driver with the most hope of making it into the final 4, that is Scott Rickard, who's got a 19-point advantage over Kyle Bowling, who is our 5th place driver. 2nd place, Andrew Hess, who almost got the win last week, and coming in tonight, only a 7-point buffer for himself, staying inside of our top 4. Only with a 4-point buffer in 3rd in points is Thomas Ogle, and the driver in the most scared position, Joshua Robinson, only a 2-point buffer over Kyle Bowling, who is our cutoff driver. And 5th, 6th is Jason Gratton. He's got 9 points to try to get himself just to 4th place. He's got a couple of more he's got to grab if he wants to find himself even higher up in the points. Dylan Graham going to be 7th in points, one of the last drivers to point his way in, as he's 7 points out to Joshua Robinson, who's our 4th place driver. And one driver is in a must-win scenario. That's Kyle McCoy, the 3-time champ, because he missed last week. Zach, that 28 machine, we know it is possible to be clutch because he's got that clutch gene in him, but can tonight be that win?
He's going to need to go and, dig down deep to find that clutch gene, as we say he has, man. It's been impressive in past seasons here at Stars and Stripes to see what he's done in the playoffs, but with missing last week, it's put him in a must-win scenario here. I would not put it past Kyle McCoy, though, man. This dude is just... it knows how to get it done when he needs to get it done, and that's the key to be as a driver. You got to have that mental fortitude, knowing your back's against the wall and going out here to win this race. And it's a 1.5 miles. I think that's kind of been a little bit more of his wheelhouse this season. It seems where he's performed the best. If this was a short track, I would be a little bit worried about that 28 machine, but I think with it being a 1.5 miles, he's going to be definitely a strong person to watch out for tonight if he can go get that win. And then someone, they'll be that unlucky person to get knocked out, of course.
I definitely agree on that. As with qualifying underway, Diego Valle going to be the top driver in qualifying. The pole position this season, we have had 12 different pole sitters throughout this season. The question is, can we see repeat or will we see someone new? The driver with the most poles, it's been the 10 machine of Joshua Robinson, who's going to be our 4th driver in points. Again, who only has a 2-point advantage. These positions are going to be so key to be up front. But the driver that is, like we said, in a must-win scenario, here's Kyle McCoy. After missing last week, what speed will the 28 have? As this is going to be his first lap that he's clocking in now. Going to be going a little bit high, loose, and that's not good to see. With a bad exit out of turn 4, this is going to be a bad first lap, and it could translate to lap 2.
It will, Sam. That is where you try to carry your speed. When you build up that momentum out of 3 and 4, usually the second lap has been the fastest here with this ARCA car throughout much of the season. If you get loose like that, you lose momentum down that front straightaway. This car doesn't have a ton of horsepower, so that makes it very tough to build that momentum back up. So McCoy could get affected just that tiny bit by that little bit of looseness there in 3 and 4, and that could throw off this qualifying time. As right now, Valle above the board, as we're going to see what the 28 can produce here on his second lap to see where he puts himself. It looks like 4th right now for the time being.
Going to be about a tenth, a little bit more than a tenth off of that of the pole award. Going to be that of the 28th Kyle McCoy. Still a decent time, even with that major mistake. Now we're riding on board with some other strong drivers. Andrew Medlin, who's already put in his first time. He's going to be trying to best his first as he's coming through 3 and 4. Andrew Medlin going with a much slower first lap, trying to maximize his speed on the second as he's right up against that outside wall, trying to carry as much momentum as possible. Here comes the 18, trying to beat Diego Valle. As the 18 crosses the line, his time will be, Gens was in 18th with that first lap. The second lap clocks in, and it doesn't look like it's going to be an advantage for the 18. A bad time for himself, but drivers are running out of time. 50 seconds left in qualifying, and Diego Valle, who got his first pole last week, looks to be going for his second one of the season.
Could be looking for back-to-back, man. An interesting case there for Andrew Medlin. I almost felt like we were looking at slow motion there from him, but I think he just backed out of it there at the end of the lap. Just didn't have the speed he needed to create that time to go up the board. So 20th will be for him. But here's Andrew Hess. This driver last week thinks he got one stolen away from him for sure, as he was the fastest car all throughout the night. We'll see what he can do here. It's going to put him up to the 8th position, and that's going to be a decent enough qualifying position, but we've always seen he's been one to watch out for when it comes to that race pace.
The driver's got the most poles of 5 this season. Josh Robinson across the line for his last lap as the clock about to tick away, but the 10 qualifies 10th with his run. And it looks to be Diego Valle survives qualifying, as he will be your pole sitter once again, back-to-back races, and will be a second one of the season for the 77. Well, practice is over. Qualifying is over. It's time for us to get ready for the last race before our championship run next week, which you don't want to miss it. Next week's going to be Bristol for the Final Four, racing for a championship. All starts tonight. Who will make it out of the Elite 8 to run for the championship? Well, this is how they're going to be starting out at Kentucky. Taking his second pull of the season, Diego Valle in the 77 will be up front. Next to him, the 24 of Kyle Bowling in the 24. Third will be Dylan Grimm in the 17. Juan Jimenez, who's gotten his 2 late wins this season, starting in 4th. Kyle McCoy, must-win scenario for the 28 machine. He'll be starting in 5th. Trey Jackson, the driver with the most starts in Stars and Stripes history, will be starting in 6th. 7th, Derek Offerman. 8th, Ross Tatum. Andrew Hess, trying to make sure that loss from last week doesn't knock him out of the playoffs. He'll be starting in 9th. And Joshua Robinson back in 10th.
First car outside that top 10, the 11th position is going to be the 31 of Thomas Ogle. 12th position is going to go to the 8 of Jason Gratton. Our points leader is going to start back in 13th. That's Scott Rickard. 14th position going to be held by the 29 of Dylan Glass. 15th is going to go to Aaron Hill. 16th position in qualifying is going to go to Will Bustler, with 17th being the 41 of Jonathan Woods. 18th position going to be held by Zach Kreitz. 19th is going to be the 22 of Brian Lynch. And the last 2 cars on the field here in 20 and 21st is Timmy McNally and Andrew Medlin.
As our 21 drivers here tonight, almost all locked in, waiting on Kyle McCoy to get into his vehicle before we get ourselves started. This race tonight going to be 133 laps in distance. No stage breaks like we've seen in other series that we broadcast. None of them going to be seen here tonight. So we have the chance of going flag to flag. We've done that already this season 6 times. Did we get our 7th here tonight? We'll find out. Also, for these drivers, no fast repair and 3 extra sets of tires in pit road to work with. But Zach, as the drivers leaving pit road, we can see from the aerial view this track, we're under the lights, and man, I'm excited for this one.
Same here, Sam. It's going to be excellent to watch this penultimate race here, man. Only 2 left, and it's going to decide that Final Four who will get the battle at Bristol, where, you know, anything can happen. I mean, it's going to be they say it's the last great Coliseum, and that's where gladiators are born. Well, they're going to have to really fight for that championship next week when they get to that half mile. But it's all starts here tonight, and this is the pathway to that Bristol Motor Speedway. You got to get it done here at Kentucky. And this track here, like you said, under the lights, it's going to have tons of grip. So these drivers are going to be looking to make the most of it here early in the going. And I tell you, you know, you said the stat of how many races they went green here. If I was a betting man, I would say we're most likely in for another flag-to-flag show. It's very possible we could see that play out.
It's very likely in the three other races that ran here in the Stars and Stripes back in Season 1 and Season 5, there has only been one caution thrown for each of those races. Season 4, the last race that they ran here, they had 4 cautions. So we'll see how the drivers are going to attest to keeping up the speed. Can they stay out of trouble? Let's find out as the driver is getting ready into the restart zone. Pace car into pit road. It's Diego Valle, Kyle Bowling, your front two, ready to get us started for the Distillery 200 here at Kentucky Speedway. Green flag is out, and it's going to be seen as 77 with a great launch, but it's the drivers on top who want to get rolling first.
Great start, like you said, from Valle there, but it's going to be Bolin looking to clear the 17 of Dylan Grimm there as you got the DuPont machine along with the Lowe's 48 machine there on that outer groove right now, fighting off a 2, and it looks like a good run from that second outside groove, and it looks like Bolin going to be able to fight for lead here down in the 3 side by side.
Trying to keep the speed and the momentum. Turns 1 and 2, more banking so the drivers can work that outside lane. Slightly less through 3 and 4, and it's the 24 with a power move through the outside, and Kyle Bowling will lead lap number 1 over Diego Valle, and on the battle for third place continues to rage on, making 4th as Kyle McCoy is on the move.
What a job by Bolin. I mean, he is driving away from this group, but you're going to see here's McCoy, like you said. He was able to make his move and get past Jimenez here. And now Jimenez going to look back to the inside while you got this gaggle of cars heading down into 3 and 4. It's Andrew Hess fighting the 25 of Trey Lynch or Trey Jackson there as he's trying to hold on to his position. But that 5 machine looking good on the bottom. Right now, this track looking like there's multiple lanes for these drivers to make speed.
Hopping on board with Derek Hoffman. This is going to give us a good shot of some of the aggressive driving that's going on. Drivers searching for where the speed's at, and it's Juan Jimenez who's making the power move. You see that little Lowe's machine taking off and pulling away quick as he moves up to 3rd place. But this is the corner. 3 and 4 drivers are still, based off these first couple of laps, searching on where in that speed they want to put into this corner, because Zach, they look on very much on edge every time we see these drivers entering the corner.
That they do, and this is impressive right now. It almost looks like some super speedway action with how stacked up it was from that 4th position back, but it looks like McCoy and Hess will be able to single file it out. But right now it's Scott Rickard, the first car on that bottom lane there. That's side by side as he'll now clear Dylan Graham down the back straightaway. You can see it's a little bit of a log jam here with Derek Hoffman right in the middle of this gaggle of cars heading down the 3 with everybody trying to find track position. Now Glass gonna look to the outside. This will be our first 3 wide moment here, right here off of 4.
Dylan Glass trying to hold on, hold steady for himself on the outside. Dylan Glass won this race all the way back in Season 1. Dominated, led 111 laps of 120. Is 29, feeling like the speed is on that 3rd lane, which is a rarity, Zach. You normally never see drivers aiming for that high, but they are sticking 3 wide, and on the driver all the way at the bottom has to be fearing for this race. That's Jason Gratton, who's one of our drivers outside looking in, and we're a stack 4 wide for a second there.
We are seeing that outside groove have some speed. Now, we don't know what it's going to do to the tires, but the speed is definitely there, and Glass was taking advantage of it, that 29. Just going around each and every one of those cars 3 at a time, and now even going to try once again to look to the outside. A Grimm here who is giving up a ton of spots. Dylan Grimm there starting in the 3rd position, dropping back here early, and we've seen in the past, and the drivers that do this, it really hasn't worked out, so kind of surprising to see this 17 not going that fast early.
Yeah, and with the fact that Dylan Glass just continues to stay 3 wide, and it seems like he is feeling very much willing and is kind of feeling comfortable in that 3rd lane. Hasn't dumped it just yet into the outside wall. It's kept himself out of trouble, but Dylan Grimm dropping back as much as he has, I am now very concerned for the 17. He has given up over 11 positions in the first 7 laps. You're not gaining that back later on.
Really are not, and the way we've seen these races go flag to flag and be green completely through the whole thing, giving up time now is you're most likely not to gain it back with any help from any cautions. This is a dire situation if you're Dylan Grimm. You do not need this to happen coming outside of that top 4 here to start tonight. I'm very surprised by this strategy. Unless he's got something figured out that we don't know, I just don't see this playing out well for the 17 as he's just losing ground to all the drivers right here that he's battling for points. As it looks like Gratton here, he's going to be battling the 25 of Jackson here down the back straight.
Trying to get by Trey Jackson. It is then Jason Gratton, and Gratton trying to make his way forward. Big thing, remember, if you're just joining us now, this is the last race of the round of 8 to solidify who are going to be the 4 drivers to race for a championship next week. And the drivers that are in red, well, those are your 8 drivers to watch out for. The drivers that are inside looking good, that's Scott Rickard, Andrew Hess, Thomas Ogle, and Joshua Robinson. They come into this race inside of our top 4. And if they finish on where they're at right now, they look to be good to be moving on to our final 4. But if we see Kyle Bowling, see Jason Gradden, Dylan Grimm, or Kyle McCoy find themselves winning this race or out-positioning some of those drivers that we just notified, they could be stealing away one of those positions, which right now the 24, Zach, he's doing just what he needs.
He really is. I just looked at the gap here a few moments ago, and it's over 3 seconds already from the 24. So no saving from Bolin. He feels like it's time to go for this 24. I mean, he's in clear track. Nobody even close to him now with McCoy that's got up to second. This is huge for Kyle Bowling here. This could be his chance and his opportunity tonight if he's just on fire like this to go here and lock himself in and not even have to worry about points. That would be a huge, huge deal for him because, again, that takes so much stress off you as a driver, not having to calculate points from the driver's seat. You just know getting the checker flag, that's the most easy way to get there.
But, again, pit strategies has been a question mark thing for these races. We've seen drivers willing to try out different strategies of trying to turn races into a 1-stop, drivers trying to turn races into a 2-stop. This 24 certainly is going with the aggressive route, most likely going to have to go with the 2-stop with how much fuel he's using up. But other drivers are going to have to think of some other strategies, as you see here the 48 of Juan Jimenez as well as Andrew Hess. Great battling between one of these 2 drivers last week. Also Scott Rickard, who was a part of the mix there for a few laps last week, but 32, most comfortable driver coming into the night, and where he's running right now, easily solidified that he will be moving on to our final 4.
He's got a very, very likely chance. I mean, it would have to be catastrophic failure for him and have other drivers win that were well outside the points for him to have major issues to get knocked out. So he just needs to have a clean, concise night, and sometimes that can actually backfire on you. Just being that much more conservative can kind of take away from the tendencies you normally do as a driver, and you never know. You end up playing yourself into a hole that you just can't climb back out of. But looking strong right now in this top 5 position for that 32, as we've seen him struggle a little bit on the long runs later as the seasons went on. So I'm interested to see if he can clean some of that up, because he definitely looked better last week when it came to that. So it's good for Scott Rickard to be trending upwards, because we know he always starts the seasons out so hot and on fire, but it's been the end of the seasons and the middle part of the seasons that just haven't worked out for him. If he wants to go get another championship, he's got to get hot right now.
Yeah, this season was kind of with the way that the first half of the regular season and the second half of the regular season was looking for that of the 32 of Scott Rickard. It was kind of giving me a little bit of deja vu of the first season we got covered here on Freaking Fast Broadcasting of the Stars and Stripes back in season 3, when we got to see Scott Rickard just dominate. He rattled off about 3 or 4 wins at the start of the season and then disappeared for the rest. And this 32 certainly now trying to keep his bumper in the mix as he drives down low of Andrew Hess. And Hess, he's got to be careful, because the more we look at this gap growing, this might turn into who can outpoint some of these drivers. Andrew Hess has to be careful. He's only got a 3-point buffer over Thomas Ogle and only a 5-point buffer over Joshua Robinson, and it might turn into make sure that you're in the top 3 of points instead of the top 4 points, because Kyle Bowling, if he wins, he takes that 4th spot.
It very well could be that way, man. I mean, with Bowling already still holding that 3-second lead, I mean, it's going to open up possibilities for other drivers to have to really worry. And Hess was battling Rickard there for a moment. He was luckily able to get a good run. Now he's looking to go around the outside of Jimenez here in the 48 and will get that job done. And now you're even bringing Ross Tatum, the 10 of Joshua Robinson in here, even Thomas Ogle and Jason Gratton. So all playoff contenders. You can see the red banners there, other than Tatum and Jimenez. They're all right mixed in here with 2 fast other drivers.
A lot of fast drivers trying to stay up front. As Juan Jimenez going to be doing his best to keep himself in a lead group, as other drivers that are not running for a championship. Ross Tatum, who missed out in the first round of being able to race both the playoff races in that first round of the round 12. And this 21 obviously could have been a massive threat to watch out for, who we're riding on board with Ross Tatum. But Zach, here tonight, that 21 could be a threat. And as well behind him, Joshua Robinson looks to be quick, as we're seeing the battle side by side for 4th place.
Robinson definitely showing up here late into the season. I mean, it's been a learning curve for him to start the season. Didn't start well, and it's really been the short tracks that he's shined, but this is important for him. He's qualified well in mile and a half and had speed, but it always seems like he just saved too much. I like to see him here battling already for a top 7 position and trying to get right in the mix with this group, because I really feel like he has the pace to battle with these guys. I just feel like sometimes he puts himself in such a big hole that it's just too much to climb back out of. So I like the strategy here. Stay up here with this mid-pack group right here on the edge of the top 5 and try to make sure you're there battling down when it comes to the end. But it looks like Jimenez again going to give up another spot, and it looks like Tatum going to just clear him. That was so close there off of 2. That could have been devastating, because we've seen before how these front bumpers and rear bumpers align. If you get contact off the exit, I don't think you're holding on to these cars.
No, you're most likely going to be spun around and in the outside wall or the inside wall. You probably much more prefer if the vehicle is going to aim towards the inside wall, so it gives you more time to react and try to save it. But if you go to the outside, your night most likely is going to be done. As we're seeing these drivers up front in line, but want to give an update on the battle and the gap for the lead. At one moment, the gap was 3.5 seconds. Zach, it is dramatically cut down to 2.3 seconds. I think Kyle Boylan might have recognized, pulled away a little bit too much, as Kyle McCoy is closing in every bit slowly each lap that goes on by.
He really is, and the big thing I looked at was the lap times of everybody's fastest times. I mean, you look at Kyle Boylan, a 31.26 from him. He's all the way down to a 32.16 the last time by, but he was almost 0.2 faster than anybody on the racetrack, and I mean upwards of 0.4 to 0.5 faster than other people. So I think this is going to come back to hurt him a little bit. Yes, he's opened up a nice gap here, but it's quickly closing down. I mean, it's almost already under 2 seconds, and each and every time you can see on our leaderboard down there telling you the lap time gain throughout this group. McCoy is just quickly running him down, and right now it looks like Boylan, he's only going to have this lead for so much longer.
Yeah, and you also are able to see both the differences of second and third closing in on Boylan, and it's now down to just 2 seconds between first and second place. But with Kyle McCoy pulling away as fast as he did, the 28 is keeping pretty similar pace to those in third and fourth position, a little bit faster than they are, as well as having about a 1.5 second gap over them and catching our leader. This is looking great for the driver that is in a must-win scenario of Kyle McCoy. And Kyle Boylan's not in a terrible spot, because again, he only needed to make sure he had a 2-point advantage over Joshua Robinson to tie that 10 machine. Zach, right now, I mean, if he can keep himself in the top 3 and Joshua Robinson doesn't move up, the 24 will still be one of the drivers trying to steal a spot away.
He will, man. It's going to be close when it all comes down to it. I have that feeling that we're going to have definitely some calculations to run. But, man, the big thing here is you don't get bonus points for leading laps here. So, Boylan going out here leading these laps, yes, it's been beneficial to him to do it and get out front here and, probably build a little bit of confidence. And hopefully he can stabilize those lap times here as the run goes on. But no bonus points. It's definitely not benefited him too much by being out front this far so far. But we'll just have to see how it plays out. But the one bonus point that you can get out here, those 3 critical bonus points for no incidences, and sometimes that comes down not even to you. Sometimes a driver can just touch you the wrong way, and they can get that incident causing both of you to get it, and you get that 3 bonus points going, and those could be the 3 bonus points that you need to move on.
It doesn't even have to be contact. I mean, you can also have a mistake on trying to come into pit road, or just spinning out and not even touching the wall, but by losing control of your vehicle can cost you an incident point. There's small little ways to lose 3 crucial points, and with every position being so crucial, it is going to be very important on these drivers. Even with these battles that are close to one another, been watching the 31 of Thomas Ogle. This 31 machine has been looking a little bit out of control on the exit of the corner, especially out of 2. And Zach, if you're Thomas Ogle, you're not even in a safe place right now, running in third position, because if Kyle Boylan and Kyle McCoy swap, that could mean the 31 and the 10 could both get bounced out of the playoffs.
The 2 teammates could be looking at that situation playing out here if this race stays in somewhat of the same fashion it is right now. And Ogle, we've seen all season, be one of the best cars when it comes to that long run, but hasn't really been able to translate that the last 2 really weeks here. So it's definitely dire times for him. Luckily, he's came in here with a decent, points there to be in that top 4. but he's got to definitely find something here tonight. If someone goes out there and wins like Kyle McCoy, especially, who is so far back in the points, that's really going to shuffle things up and make that 4th position right now in points not the place you want to be. So it's tough if you're Ogle, and especially he knows what's up next week. We know this guy is a Bristol specialist, pretty much, has been one of the best in this series at Bristol. It's something that I think he really needs to make sure he gets to that Final Four, because he knows he has a shot to go win there next week, no doubt.
I mean, racing at Bristol in the Final Four championship race. I mean, Zach, we've touched on it even when we're not broadcasting. It is one of the most bizarre races to pick for a championship race. I don't think I've seen any other league do that before. And it's a racetrack where bumping is kind of, pushed on the drivers of, hey, if you're going to make a pass, you might have to move the driver out of the way. And it's not going to be based on points. It's based on positioning. And we get to see these drivers get very aggressive next week, based off of the aggression level ramping up.
We very well could, Sam. And, Bristol is a place where, it's a contact sport, definitely. And we've seen contact. These cars can equate very easily a spin and just major incidents. So, it could come down right to the end of some beating and banging with these cars at Bristol. It's definitely an interesting and bizarre choice. But I tell you, I'm here for it. We're definitely going to be amped up for that one heading into next week, and I just can't wait to figure out who's going to be those drivers fighting for it, because they're going to be willing to put everything on the line at the last great Coliseum, and it's just going to be a ton of excitement all around as we look to crown that champion. But at the moment, it's still Kyle McCoy closing that gap down, man. It's under a second now. McCoy is just clicking off good lap times.
That he is, the 28, who came into this race 8th in points. He, after missing last week, was in a must-win scenario. Now closing in on the other Kyle Bowling. The 24 got that a second place, took the lead off of turn number 4, and never looked back. Has led every single lap so far this race. Built the gap up to 3.5 seconds. Well, Kyle McCoy is slowly inching his way forward. And as we're seeing Kyle McCoy getting up, driver that was 7th in points, Dylan Grimm, who qualified 3rd, Zach the 17, nowhere to be found. He's back in 19th position. This is looking terrible for Dylan Grimm. He's going to need a yellow to get himself back into this race.
This is so bizarre from him, Sam. I mean, his fastest lap time, the slowest in the field. He has only been in the 32-second bracket. I mean, you had Kyle McCoy stay in the 31-second bracket all the way up to around lap 25. So Grimm is definitely doing something different. I'm kind of starting to question, is he looking to do something similar to what Jimenez did last week? Because, running a little bit of math, they're going to have to go about 67 laps on fuel if they want to make a one-stop happen. And, I mean, it could be in the realm of possibilities, but I think most are going to stick with that two-stop strategy. We could be seeing Grimm look to pull a play out of the playbook from Jimenez here early.
And also Andrew Medlin, Brian Lynch, they have just stayed behind the 17 and it allowed him to be the pace driver for these drivers, not pushing any type of aggression. As you see your Andrew Medlin cam of him just trying to stay behind, keep himself close, and also trying to keep those RPMs low as he is pushing in the clutch, trying to save fuel. And Zach, I think that's exactly what this group of 3 are doing, is trying to save fuel to make it to the halfway marker and turn this race into a one-stop. But it is certainly an art based off what we saw Jimenez do last week. What these drivers doing now is you have to make sure that you keep yourself close enough to the lead group while saving fuel, and you don't give up enough time. And that's the one thing I'm concerned about, is that based on how fast Kyle Bowling and Kyle McCoy are running, they might be giving up just a little bit too much time.
You're exactly right, Sam. That was what Jimenez did so well. He kept up the speed and saved the fuel. So that was huge for him, as we've been watching Andrew Medlin here with that driver cam saving the fuel. I think we even got a battle for the lead, and it's going to be quickly switching hands as that 28 up front has taken the lead to the point and just, easily done it. I mean, it's just showing that burning your tires up can be a huge detriment to you. I mean, the big thing, though, for Bowling, if anything, he's still in the 2nd position right now, and he's still got about a 2-second gap back to Joshua Robinson. So he's done a good job so far, and the two-stop strategy is also going to be coming into play here very, very soon. So we're going to see these drivers looking to probably hit pit road around lap 45 to lap 50. Most likely 45 for these guys, so only got to go about 10 more laps. If he can at least hold on to the 2nd position, in my opinion, this is still going to work out pretty well. But the thing he's got to worry about is that driver out front, because he is flying.
I mean, for that of Kyle Bowling, he can let Kyle McCoy go. The big thing that Kyle Bowling at this point is banking on is that he can keep a good distance between himself and third place pack that's growing. That's got Joshua Robinson, Andrew Hess, Ross Tatum, and Scott Rickard. Because of the fact that Thomas Ogle is lost, he's back in 9th place and isn't close enough to really battle with this lead group. If this race goes green, like we've seen plenty of races this season go from flag to flag with no yellows, there is a chance if Ross Tatum, Scott Rickard get by the 10, Kyle Bowling could be stealing one of these positions away as he would take Thomas Ogle's position, and then Kyle McCoy with his win would take that of Joshua Robinson's spot. So there is plenty of points discussions going on. It's the one driver, Andrew Hess and Scott Rickard, based on where they're running, they're in complete comfort on the amount of points that they had coming into this race and where the drivers are competitively to where the other competition is.
Yeah, they've been just fast enough to, make sure that they stay right there and not let these guys gain a ton of points. But you're seeing Ogle, he's going to try to get another position back here and move back up to 8th as Jimenez here falling a little ways back here. And, I'm interested with Jimenez. We've seen him have so much speed on these mile and a half, and especially the long run speed. I'm almost considering, is he even saving fuel now? I mean, last week he was so good at keeping his speed up and saving the fuel. Even his lap time for his best time is, well off the pace. He could have been saving right from the beginning. We could see his 48 looking to do a similar strategy once again, because I just don't see him being this slow on a mile and a half. It's really been his bread and butter this season when it comes to the long runs.
I mean, Zach, you were talking about the numbers, right, of the best lap times when drivers started this race off and just putting down burners immediately. We already documented on the fact that Kyle Bowling has put down the fastest lap at the start of the race with a 31.2 second time. Well, second fastest was that of Kyle McCoy, who put a 31.4. Everyone else put a 31.6 or slower. And that just shows to me most of the field is thinking about maybe saving their tires. I don't think they're in the extreme fuel saving mode, but it could be just you need to save a couple of tenths to make it to the halfway point.
It very well could be. It could be super close, and sometimes that's just the margin you need. I mean, it's so easy on that fuel saving strategy, in my opinion, to oversave. And that's one thing you can easily get into is just go too slow and let everybody gain on you. So we'll see if any of these guys in this group elect to do it and they're just holding a little bit faster pace with the fuel saving and doing a little bit less of it. We'll just see if that comes back to him. But it's definitely been interesting to see Jimenez not have the speed that he's had possessed on the mile and a half before. As we're checking out Glass here, he's in the 10th position. He was making those big moves up through the field from that 14th starting grid, and it does seem like it's kind of backfired on him now. He's starting to lose a little bit of pace to the guys around him, and people like Kreitz are starting to close in on him. But still, it was exciting to watch that 29 take it to the third lane as he's a little loose off 4 there.
A little loose out of 4, but it makes me excited to see, once we see pit stops, what is Dylan Glass' speed going to be again. He won and dominated back in Season 1, leading every lap. He got the pole, led the most laps, and won the race back in Season 1. Then they took a big gap of racing. Season 4 was the next time they went to Kentucky, where they got to see Andrew Medlin winning that race, and it was actually Christopher Wade who led the most laps for that run. The last time these drivers were here last season, you got to see that of Joshua Robinson, got the pole, led the most laps, but it was Ross Tatum who actually won that race as Thomas Ogle, Juan Jimenez, and a little frisky out of 4.
Ogle knows this is desperation time for him tonight, with especially the drivers all around him in points and underneath him all doing so well, and also with seeing the 28 up front. I think that's got to be an ominous sign, knowing, hey, if the 28 gets the win, I need to make sure I finish 3rd in points, because if I finish 4th in points, it's not going to push me through with how far back that 28 was. So this is a huge moment for Thomas Ogle right now. He needs to make sure he gains some track position and gains some points, but it just seems like that 31 not able to find this pace and speed he's had and possessed through much of the season.
And based off where the drivers are running currently, it actually would be Thomas Ogle who get bounced out. Joshua Robinson would move forward into 3rd place in points as some drivers making their first stops. Aaron Hale last lap came into pit road. Here's Derek Offerman going to be the next driver in line. And a driver that was a part of that extreme saving, Zach, Brian Lynch now into pit road.
Interesting to see him coming down. So maybe just not the pace he needed tonight here to run, to be able to get it done. And he'll bring it down here right around that window of when I thought. I feel like 45 would be right in the perfect area for these guys to stop here at lap 45. then lap 90 to take him to the end of the race. So I expect to see pit road get very, very busy here in the next 5 laps, with drivers probably some stretching a little farther and others electing to go right at that dot of where they feel like is the good cutoff point. We'll just have to see which strategy works the best, because last week I think that was the huge thing is, you know, do you do the undercut or do you do the overcut to see how you can gain time on the fresh tires over drivers? But right now, it looks like Woods and Scott Rickard, they're going to bring it to pit road.
Scott Rickard, the first of our drivers that were inside of our top 10, going to be coming to pit road. Jonathan Woods following in suit. Scott Rickard with his early pit stop. Let's see what advantages he has. Is currently the drop off on lap times, but a 2.5 seconds is our leaders back to their previous lap to their best lap, but into pit road over the radio, expecting the 24 of Kyle Bowling to make his stop. And Zach, it's where we've seen a lot of these mile-and-a-half races be. That lap 45 marker to lap 50 seems to be the sweet spot for a lot of these drivers.
It really is. It just seems like that's the best place to make the pit stop happen. And we've seen Scott Rickard be on the aggressive side of undercuts before, so I'm not, too surprised to see him be one of the first ones to come to pit road. It's worked well for him in the past. We'll see if it works well here tonight at Kentucky. But I think our leader now, Kyle McCoy, he don't want to wait any longer. He says, I like the gap I had. Let's keep this gap similar here, as he brings it to pit road and gets it woed up there for pit speed.
Also following behind the 28 machine, going to be Ross Tatum. Sadly for Brian Lynch, who came into pit road as one of our earlier drivers, was caught with a bad exit at a pit road, caught speeding. The 22 had to come into pit road and serve a black flag penalty, which that's another thing, Zach, these drivers got to be concerned about. We saw the aggressive entry there by the 28. Other drivers got to be careful. A black flag could be just a complete race ender for any of these top drivers that are aiming for the win, as Andrew Hess still leads the way, and Joshua Robinson now into pit road.
We'll say Hess will stay out another lap, while the rest of the drivers, most of them other than Ogle and Jimenez, will bring it down pit road. So interesting calls are made all around, but I got to completely agree with you about the black flag. If you get a black flag here tonight, I mean, you can kiss your playoffs goodbye, because it is literally, and more than likely, we're going to see this race play out green unless something strange happens, in my opinion. I think this race goes green. A black flag would be something you cannot come back from. So this is not what you want to have happen if you come to pit road, but most of the drivers with the playoffs banners on, they've made it through their first set of pit stops. We just got a few more to try it out.
As we're seeing Andrew Hess, that Thomas Ogle, Juan Jimenez, Trey Jackson, Tim McNally, Diego Valle, Dylan Grimm staying out. Andrew Hess, we're waiting for him to come into pit road, but drivers are under pressure. Diego Valle, Dylan Grimm, they're on old tires. They are being swamped currently as the 5 stays low, and he's going to be entering pit road here with how slow he is and trying to hit his marks. But other drivers in some chaos deeper in the middle of the field.
That they are. It is definitely some chaos with a mixed bag of strategies all around that 17 and that 77. It's really getting spicy here, because you got Grattan coming through on fresh tires. You're going to have, I believe, the 9 of Kreitz there. He'll be on fresh tires. Brian Lynch in the 22. All of these drivers right around the guys that were trying to stretch the fuel out. So these drivers are going to take it long here, and it's going to be a little bit of a stack up with this group, as Grattan almost in the back bumper of the 77 there through 1 and 2. Luckily, he's not going to get that collected there for him. He's going to go around the outside of this group here as this group continues on, trying to make that fuel stretch for the one stopper.
We have a question in the chat of who's on which team, of that of Andrew Medlin, Diego Valle, Dylan Grimm, and Juan Jimenez. Those 4 drivers are all on the same team. They're part of GRR Racing, as they are all in this swamped group. And seeing those 4 drivers still out on track, as well as Tim McNally in the 12. But fresh tires, always a scare to see, as the mixed bag of drivers. And Zach, this is kind of giving me a little bit of flashbacks to our Monday night series. We got the call for the ISRC truck series of drivers on old tires, those on new, and some of the aggressive passing drivers have to make these evasive moves to make sure you're not losing time with fresh rubber.
You're exactly right, Sam. It definitely seems very similar to that situation that played out there. I mean, when you have speeds of upwards of a 1.5 seconds faster, lap times than what these drivers are running right now on these older tires, you're going to see, I mean, it's going to be a blurring pass because it's just going to catch you off guard with how fast those drivers are able to go around you. Luckily, everybody makes it through this group. But with that group, all, teammates there, I'm not too surprised to see them all here on similar strategy. It seems like Jimenez, even though he keeps staying out, I think he's still saving fuel. I think this guy has just got saving fuel figured out to an art. And it really comes down to it, like, keeping that speed, like we said, and being able to save the fuel. If he's able to do something similar that he did last week, people are going to be questioning their strategy, I think, for the rest of the time here when they come back to the next season.
Well, I actually kind of want to hope we can hop on board with the 48 because this is so interesting to watch his gauges on how he's running this race because he is very aggressive on when he's clutching into these corners. He's doing an early clutch into turn 1, but gets back on the throttle so he's not losing time. But Zach, it's the entry of 3 here. Watch how quick he just backs off into the clutch. I mean, he is automatically trying to clutch up and save fuel immediately into the corner.
I love that. It's interesting to see how well he's doing it too, because the other drivers are attempting to do the same thing. He's just got it figured out to an art, and what it comes down to a lot of times is you got to lift a lot earlier than you expect and get that clutch engaged, because when you engage that clutch, you lose any bit of engine braking or resistance in that motor that when we normally lift off the gas, the car naturally wants to slow down. You push that clutch in, the car is free rolling. It just keeps going with the inertia that it already has, and that's what causes the car to get a little tight or wash up the racetrack. So if you push that clutch in a little bit earlier than where you would normally lift, you can get that same similar bit of slowing down from the natural bit of the car losing the power, and you'll get that same turn that you want, and you'll save even more fuel and carry more speed. So this is what this 48 is doing, and it's pretty much down to a T for him because, I mean, if you think about it, he's saving this fuel still. He's 11 seconds ahead of his teammates of Dylan Grimm, Diego Valle, and Andrew Medlin, who are all doing the similar strategy. It just shows you he's got it figured out, man.
And he certainly has got this strategy down, but these drivers have to find a way to keep themselves in front of those that have already pitted, and Scott Rickard is leading that group currently right now. They're aiming to try to get to the halfway marker, which is going to be in about 8 laps. So we're going to actually take a quick commercial break. When we come back, it is going to be one of those moments where when we come back, it should be right at the halfway marker. We'll see if these drivers have made it or did they run out of fuel before then. But you are currently watching the Stars and Stripes throwback season. It's the end of the round of 8. Who's running for a championship? We'll find out after this. We'll see you on the other side.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
center. Basket can't defend. He's got the outside line for the second part, and he can't hold on.
Going the long way around. We're going to be 3 wide for the lead as they all come to the line. Who is going to take it in the end?
And here comes Lockwood. He's going to make the move to the outside. Quinn tries to force him off a little bit, but there he goes. It's going to be side by side through turn 1.
Will he be able to cover him off? He does. Weaving back to the left-hand side. Reynolds is trying everything. The kitchen sink is being thrown at it.
They're leaning on each other. Coming into turn number 3. It's going to be a drag race through 3 and 4. Coming back to the line. Here comes Frisch on the bottom. Richard's going to hold the inside. Tries to be the late breaker here. They're going to be side by side through the final chicane. They bang doors, but keep it clean.
As they're still 4 wide on the run down into the back straightaway. Demerit's looking for a line as well. What is going on in Michigan?
Novak into the fence. They're still beating and banging.
Oh
and to the line.
He is much faster coming through there. Is there damage on Challenger? Abramitis is ahead. There's going to be a race to the line. Who is going to get it?
I think I watched Josh 3 or 4 times before I ran the car. He killed them every race, and it was like stout fields, like good cars, big races, and I mean, he was unbeatable. And I was like, oh man, this is, like, I'm nervous. I was so nervous getting into the car full time this year after watching Josh win 3 or 4 races straight. These cars, they have a lot of horsepower now. They have over 500, and I think 5 years ago they didn't have 450. They're gonna be a handful to drive, but just don't overdrive them. Let the car do the work.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Stars and Stripes throwback season. It's the last race of the round of 8, and all of our first green flag pit stops are done, as we have seen a couple of drivers under commercial break make the final pit stop for some of these drivers. Others still need to make one more stop here tonight. But the Stars and Stripes throwback series is presented by ButtKicker. Feel what you've been missing, and as well, Next Level Racing. Get your racing rig today to make sure you've got the best sim career to start off on. Thank you to the major sponsors here at Stars and Stripes. As well, want to give a big shout out to ourselves here at Freaky Fast Broadcasting. We've got a great cause that's coming out. It's our Gamer Outreach 600. June 10th is our charity race. It's our second charity race of the year and our final one of 2023. We are so proud of everyone that came along our first charity race, which was our Juvenile Diabetes Daytona 500 back in February. And here in June, we're excited, just a month away from our Gen 4 Cup cars running at Charlotte for 600 miles, 400 laps, and you're going to have myself and Zach all in the booth, and plenty of other drivers already signed up. Zach, I can't wait for it, as that's going to be a great race to watch.
It really is, Sam. Yeah, plenty of spots still available, about 26 cars right now, all signed up for that event. So still plenty of slots out there if you want to come out here and join us for that 600 miles. And I'm telling you, 900 horsepower race cars, 400 laps around the Charlotte Motor Speedway at 600 miles. It's going to be something you definitely don't want to miss out on. So make sure if you can't come out there and race with us, come join us for the broadcast and enjoy a wonderful charity race here presented by Freaky Fast Broadcasting for the Gamers Outreach 600. So I can't personally wait for it. It's going to be a blast up here in the booth, and I'm sure it's going to be fun out there for the drivers also. But Sam, I tell you, after all these pit stops have concluded for those one-stoppers, there's ominous signs out there for drivers like Kyle McCoy who need to get this victory to move themselves on to that Final Four. I think Juan Jimenez has done the great heist again if he can just pull it off like he did last week.
Juan is in a wild spot right now. He is still in the lead lap, so if a caution flag comes out, he's still in a decent position for himself, and he's also find himself being 16 seconds ahead of Dylan Grimm, who's another driver who is pulling off the one-stop strategy. But when he came into pit road, Juan had still a 12-second gap lead over Kyle McCoy, just showing the absolute just saving masterclass the 48 has had. He put it on last week. We thought maybe it was just a one-off race. But Zach, I think Juan might have just figured out something here, and that's the joy of this league and this series, on the fact that they change cars each season, is that at the end of the season, you kind of learn those different strategies on how to be the best at the end of the season.
He's learned the tendencies for sure. I mean, it's most likely here he's probably figured out that, hey, these series races are supposed to go green. He doesn't have a lot to risk either by doing these strategies, by not being in the playoffs. So it gives him the availability to say, no, I'm going to go out there and push it right to the limit of the fuel and try to make the most of it. And I think that what makes him very successful at it is just the speed that he carries while doing it. I mean, it's so impressive to see. And, if he pulls it off once again and we don't get a caution, there's going to be some drivers out there questioning, man, what do I need to do to pull off that strategy? Because, I mean, even like we said, Dylan Grimm, Andrew Mellon, they pulled off something similar there by pitting, pretty much 2 laps later than him, but they are going so much slower. Like he said, 18 seconds behind Jimenez is Grimm, and he's still a lap down. And right now, at the lap times he's turning, he's only 2/10 quicker than our leader, who's coming out of 2. Grimm has to worry about, how much time he's given up. I just don't think it's going to be too much of a gain for him overall. So it's completely two different sides of the tail of the tape there for Jimenez and Grimm, but we'll just see which way it works out, because Jimenez, I mean, he, like you said, Sam, he's just got something figured out with the fuel saving that others out there just haven't seemed to click yet with this season.
The picture might be a little bit scrambled when you look at the ticker and you're seeing where drivers are running. We're 77 laps in. You might be thinking, hey, Kyle McCoy's leading this race. He should be the driver to really watch out for. But again, if you watched last week's race, Juan Jimenez deeper in the field, went for the one stop. Once we see this next pit stop of the drivers that go for their second stop, you are going to see a much clearer picture on what this window is going to look like, which drivers all came into pit road between that of lap 43 to that of lap 50. So we are expecting drivers around the marker of lap 88 to that of lap 100 is the marker. We're expecting drivers that are doing a 2-stop to come into pit road. But Zach, if you're trying to run down Juan Jimenez, I would imagine there's some strategies that you're going to have to throw out the window that maybe your original plan was if you're going to catch this 48.
I think you got to run as fast as you possibly can, man. I mean, you have to put down the best average lap times for the majority of your 45-lap run as you can, because if you don't, you're not running them back down before the end of this race is over. So, if these drivers, it's hard, though. This is the thing is, when you're driving, you're so focused on what you're doing on the racetrack, it's hard to pay attention to what others have done. But at least you will have that ideal of saying, hey, man, they made it to lap 66. This is putting in an ominous sign to where they can make the one-stop work. So I think that has clicked into some drivers' heads, because I looked at the best lap times ran by a lot of these drivers. We talked about a lot of them being 31.7s, 31.5s, 31.6s. Well, most of them have dropped it down into the 31.2s. So we've seen the pace pick up from our league group, and I think they know there really can be no saving the tires. They have to go full bore here on out and just try to hope they can run back down these one-stop strategy guys.
Or if we're going to see a yellow come out that could really scramble up how this race is going to go down, it could be happening around that of the positions of 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. You got 4 drivers all on top of one another, and right now it's Jason Gratton, Zach Kreitz, Dylan Glass, Tom, and as well Andrew Medlin and Thomas Ogle all in the mix here. Medlin is a lap down, but we're going to see a yellow. It could be from these drivers as Thomas Ogle refreshes tires of everyone in this group.
That he does, Sam. He's running this group down and see if he can gain some spots, because he definitely needs to do that. And Ogle, I think, would be a huge fan of Juan Jimenez winning this race. He would love to see that, because he's hoping he can just get that 4th playoff position by points, because it's just not been the speed tonight. You got guys like Robinson, Bowling, Hess. They've all had really good runs so far. Ogle back here in the 10th position has given up some points to him. He needs to make sure this run right here, he makes the most of it, and hopefully, for his sake, he can try to get up to the 7th position before it's all said and done on pit road, because it's about 4 seconds from Jason Gratton up to Ross Tatum. I just don't see the possibilities of Ogle running him down before we get to that 2nd set of pit stops. So we'll see how it works out. He elected to do the same strategy of his teammate Andrew Hess and stretch it out farther than anybody on the 2-stop strategy, but sometimes that can come back to backfire on you a little bit and losing that time while those drivers go out in the fresh tires. But it's definitely impressive to see, but we're also seeing a little bit of the time delta between our top 2 drop down as Joshua Robinson is starting to run down Kyle McCoy. So impressive stuff from the 10 machine here, as he's been able through this set of strategy here get past Bowling.
Well, you just pointed out, Zach, the fact of drivers running a lot faster on their average and fastest laps on the 2nd run. I think a lot of knowledge from that first stint of, oh, maybe we were saving a little bit too much, still had a little bit of freshness in those tires. Let's be slightly more aggressive. And Joshua Robinson has put down the fastest lap of anyone in this race, almost put down a 31.1 lap time, and he is closed in the gap within a second, now almost within a half a second. And for Joshua Robinson, he's got a 1-lap advantage over Kyle McCoy, but it seems like McCoy going a little bit more on the passive approach. He might be trying to just make sure these tires last and go for the full average for a better long run instead of trying to be quick immediately. But it seems like being quick immediately and all the way through a run, Joshua Robinson has found the magic for himself to be right here with Kyle McCoy.
It very well might be the case here, because, I mean, he does have 1-lap fresher tires here in this 10 machine. He's got it down to about a half a second now. We'll see if McCoy picks it back up when he gets to him. But I was looking at lap times from about the end of their last run. They were all into about the 32.7s and 32.8s region. Right now, both of them pretty much in that region once again. Robinson at 32.6, Arlear with a 32.7 up front. So it's right on the edge, or right where they finished their first run at. And with where the laps are at on the timing right now, with 86 laps in the books next time around, we could have pit stops here in the next 4 laps. And even look, here's Ross Tatum. He's coming down. He's wasting no time. I think they know they need to get in here and get fresh tires and start to gain on those one-stop strategy guys.
That was one thing I was curious about. If you're Kyle McCoy or Joshua Robinson, I like the strategy of running as fast as you can and then doing a short pit, because then you're closing on the gap and cutting away any advantage Juan would have of building up his gap on you, and instead you'd be able to gain on that driver. But it's finding that equal ground, as Ross Tatum, the only driver to make his pit stop currently. We have lost the driver, that's Tim McNally, who's had some trouble with internet and also staying in the sim throughout the night. Another driver that had some trouble, that's Brian Lynch, who has just pulled it into pit road and has called it a night for the 22 machine. We're down to 19 drivers, and if that is Scott Ricker does not get any incident points, that of the 32 machine will be locked in to our final 4 with the amount of points that he has. And right now, challenging Andrew Hess for 4th place. And these are the top 2 drivers points-wise coming in tonight. They got to be careful with one another.
That they do. They don't want to have any squabbles here to ruin their opportunities for Bristol next week. As looks like it'll be a clean pass from the 5 there to get past them. And no surprise for Andrew Hess to be quicker right now on much fresher tires, about 5 laps of a difference between these 2 shown on screen. But still, Andrew Hess not producing the best lap times with that 5-lap difference, even compared to Robinson, just a little bit slower. So we'll see how it works out. But it looks like Kyle Bowling, he's bringing it down to 24 for his pit stop here. And I know, Sam, you alluded to the strategy of running hard and, getting that early pit stop in so you can gain as much time as possible. I think that would have been the best call possible. You just got to go as fast as you can go, kind of similar to what Bowling did the first run, and just make that pit stop pretty early in the marker. And looks like right now, Bowling not wasting no time. He's going to bring it down.
Bowling into pit road. Also as well joining him going to be Jason Grattan. And Grattan, he might have wanted to try something a little bit different for himself as Kyle McCoy now entering pit road after seeing the 24 to make his pit stop. Joshua Robinson staying out for a couple of more laps. And I think for Joshua Robinson, the key factor for him, he realized just with a 1 lap advantage, he was able to catch up to Kyle McCoy, maybe a 2 or 3 lap advantage. He'll be able to even close in even more and turn the race closer to I want to be in the highest position possible. So he's in that 3rd place in points spot over that of Thomas Ogle, because Ogle is in a very dangerous spot. Based on how they were running before these pit stops started, the 32 would have been pushed out points-wise, and Kyle Bowling would have gone in and taken that 4th place position.
It very well could play out that way, man. This is going to be a dire situation for Ogle. He can't wait too long, and I think it's a good decision by him to be coming out of pit road now. I mean, he took the long route last time, but it just didn't work out, I think, the way he was hoping it would. So I think undercutting here should be the best strategy and way to go. But we'll see what Robinson does. I think, like you said, Sam, he's just looking to stretch it maybe just a little bit farther than McCoy, just noticing that 1 lap difference made that big of a difference for him. I think you might see him be coming in this next time by here to try to get his pit stop done. But then after all this cycles through and everybody hits pit road, we'll get to see what is Jimenez's gap to someone like Kyle McCoy, someone like, Joshua Robinson. And that's going to be the telltale sign of seeing if they can run him down in this final portion of the race.
That's the math I'm trying to figure out currently, as Juan Jimenez has a 14-second gap off of Joshua Robinson, and that means Robinson, he would have loved to be able to say, hey, I kept Jimenez a lap down. Not able to do that. As Andrew Hess now going to take that lead position. Wait for the 5 machine to be one of the last drivers to hit pit road as Joshua Robinson has made his stop. Zach, I mean, what a race this has turned into. It is down to strategy once again, and it is crucial strategy because Juan Jimenez could be stealing another spot from one of these playoff drivers. It was at last week, Andrew Hess losing out on an opportunity to automatically lock himself into a Final Four contention, and tonight, he could be bouncing out the 3-time champ of Kyle McCoy potentially here tonight with these strategy calls. As we are going to take our last commercial break of the evening. We'll take you to the end after this as we're going to go side by side once more. Will it be the 1 stop? Will it be the 2 stop? We'll find out for the Distillery 200 here at Kentucky for the Stars and Stripes throwback season. Thank you for joining with us. We'll be back right after this.
the best. You got him for abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws. World of Outlaws Dirt Racing will be available September 27th. Pre-order your copy today.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We got 33 laps to go here tonight for the Stars and Stripes throwback season. It's the last race of the round of 8 to see our final 4 drivers that will race for a championship next week at Bristol. And we've got a lot of different storylines going down currently. Juan Jimenez, who's going for the one stop, currently leading by over 15.5 seconds over Kyle McCoy. And McCoy, who was a driver in a must-win scenario, we're talking under commercial break. And Zach, this is looking very much dire for the 28 because I don't know if he's going to be able to make it to the end.
Yes, Sam, this is the situation that is possibly worse for him. That, you know, it's a 15-second gap. Right now, yes, he is gaining a ton of time on Jimenez. I mean, it's about 0.8 that last time by that he gained on Jimenez. But the big thing I went back and looked at is Juan Jimenez at the end of the runs there was still running 32.7s, 32.8s. And that's what these drivers run at the end of their run. And, you know, the lap times, yes, the delta's huge right now between those two. So the gaining is very massive. But at some point, that delta between lap times is going to equal out. And, you know, Kyle McCoy is going to be gaining 0.2 a lap, 0.3 a lap. And then it'll drop to about 1/10 a lap. And then it'll start to even out even. So that's what really doesn't play out well for this 28. You know, you got to feel for the guy because if he does bring it home in the second position, he's going to be saying what could have been for sure, because I just don't think anybody saw Jimenez being able to save, once again, this amount of fuel and go this fast. I think that's the key word because, you know, you got guys like Dylan Grimm. They've saved a ton of fuel also. But Grimm, he's back here in 7th position. He's already getting passed by all the guys on new tires. For Grimm, he's probably going to fall outside the top 10 and even outside the top 15 possibly with how this strategy is going to play out for him. So it just shows you the two different tells of the tape from one driver saving fuel to another driver saving fuel. It just hasn't been the same speed produced.
With the amount of drivers that were left in this race, it basically turned into Kyle McCoy and Dylan Grimm were in must-win scenarios if they wanted to move on and run for a championship. And currently, with how the drivers are running, Scott Rickard with 19 drivers left out on track and Diego Valle just struggling at this moment. It looks to be the 32 going to be automatically locked into the next round. Andrew Hess needs to make sure he continues to stay at least in our top 7 to make sure that he's good to move on. Thomas Ogle, though, who came into this race 3rd in points. He got a 4-point buffer over Kyle Bowling. Currently on where the drivers are running, Thomas Ogle would be bounced out, and he would be in 5th in points. Joshua Robinson, who's been having a fabulous run here in the second half of this race, he would be moved up to 3rd in points. And, I mean, it's crazy to see Jason Grattan. Sadly, he just has not been having the run that is necessary to put him into that of the Final Four. But what a season the 8s had, Zach, of trying to make the Final Four for another season. But I think the competition was way too consistent this season. Top 7, not going to be good enough.
It's not going to be good enough for sure, Sam. And, yeah, like you said, the competition level's just stepped up that even much more here at the Stars and Stripes League. I mean, it's really been impressive to see how these drivers have maneuvered themselves, and it's a question of, you know, what could you have done? And you'll always look back at the races and say, what could I have done differently to make myself in a better situation? But it's just sometimes that's how the way the cookie crumbles, and it's just not meant for some of these guys to get in the Final Four this season. But I tell you what, the one silver lining I can look at for, you know, maybe someone like Kyle McCoy is Jimenez might have a little more trouble saving fuel this time because he went to 66 laps in the first round. Now, that is with an extra pace lap that you have to add on there. That burns a little tiny bit of fuel, but he did go 66 laps there. He's got to go 67 this last time, and he hasn't really had too much draft help that he had before. And drafting, not only does it make you go faster down the straightaways, but it's a lot less resistance on that car. That makes it easier to save fuel and just be much more fuel efficient. So it could be tougher on Jimenez here to save the fuel, and he might have to slow that pace down even more than what we've seen in that first run. But still, I just think the gap he has, it's going to be tough to make up.
That's the big thing. He had such a bigger gap than the other drivers that were trying to save fuel and are on a similar strategy as Juan Jimenez. The other drivers being Dylan Grimm and as well as Diego Valle, but Diego Valle was caught with a black flag on his first stop. He's already coming to pit road just to try to minimize the amount of mistakes that he's had, and Juan has just done a fabulous job of keeping himself in a position to go for this win. Almost identical to the way that he won last week at Auto Club, but the gap is down to 10 seconds. But Kyle McCoy now only gaining about 6/10 when he was gaining a full second. And Joshua Robinson, he's now caught up to the back bumper of Kyle McCoy, and the battle for second place might start to heat up. And if they start to lose time, Juan Jimenez would be able to keep this gap on where he's at right now.
You're exactly right, too, because you know McCoy, he's going to fight hard. He knows that if something happens to Jimenez, he needs to be in the second spot if he wants to go move on to that Final Four. So he's not going to give this position up to Robinson, just say, here you go, you're faster than me. Go ahead and take it. It's going to be a fight between these two, and that's what's going to make it tough. When you fight somebody, you slow each other down. That makes the time gain on Jimenez that much slower. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out here with these two when they get caught up, because I don't think it's if, but I think it's when this 10 gets there, because he's got those fresher tires, and we saw it was 1 lap fresher last time and he was quicker. This time, multiple laps fresher. About 3 is the difference between the two now. This 10 might have an easy pass, and that's what he's hoping for, because he wants to be the one to track down Jimenez.
Before that, of the 28 and the 10, if they are going to catch up to Juan Jimenez, they need to be at least gaining, once they hit lap 114, they need to be gaining at least that of 4.5 tenths each lap if they're going to catch up to the end of this race and be on Juan's back bumper. But that's where we're going to be seeing these tires start to drop off, because Juan Jimenez, I mean, Zach, we talk about how the fact that he needs to save fuel, he has been putting down some of her faster laps that he's ran in the past 10 laps, trying to make sure that he equals and minimizes. As you can see here, the different gains that the drivers have had right now, trying to close in is Kyle McCoy and Joshua Robinson, but Juan's doing a great job of at least minimizing the gap that needs to be gained for these drivers.
He really is. He's minimizing that gap, and it seems like his lap times bounce around 32.8, 32.6, 32.8, 32.6. It's just kind of back and forth for him. It seems like he can go when he needs to go and just save when he needs to save, and that's going to be the key crucial thing for him, because it's about 8 seconds now separating these two from that 48 machine, as they got about a 4-second back to Kyle Bowling. But Robinson here, he's loving this situation. This is allowing him possibly to go to the Final Four at Bristol, and another situation that plays out. If, Jimenez does run out and he takes the win away from this 28, he doesn't have to battle his 28 next week. That's a huge relief, I think, that he would have. And, they're going to race hard here side by side down into the corner. Like I said, that 28 not going to want to give this position up. This is going to be critical time loss, but I think the 10 just going to have enough tire. He should clear here down in the 3.
Almost fully clear going down into turns number 3 and 4 as Joshua Robinson trying to get back into the throttle. Keeping it close are these two drivers off the exit of turn 4, though. They continue to keep it side by side, and a lap by, they only gained 2 tenths that last time, Zach. This is hurting them. They went from an opportunity and a chance to now just throw it away now with this battling.
It is. It's exactly right, man. You can see just how the difference is, and what I think it is on the bottom of 1 and 2, it's very good and very much preferred. Down here in 3 and 4, though, this track has a little bit more multi-groove action, but I think right there to 28, up the groove just that little bit. It's going to open up the door for the 10 to have it, but no, the run off the top is just too much for the 28. He's going to keep it side by side. Nice side draft here, and again, just not gaining time. It was only 1/10 of a second there gained, and about 2 for Robinson. So, it's just showing here, yeah, you can battle hard, but you're not going to run that 48 down with this type of battling here. Is now the 10 finally going to clear. We'll see. Now he's in open track, nothing side by side. What kind of lap times can this 10 produce?
And Zach, we've touched on it plenty of times in all the different series that we cover week in and week out. When you are stuck battling with the driver side by side for multiple laps, as Kyle McCoy trying to keep it out of the outside wall. I mean, those tires are not happy when you have that type of battle we just saw.
They are not. They just get heated up, man. And when you build heat, that's when the balance and the handling goes away in these cars. And, you know, a lot of drivers talk about tire wear and percentages on their tire wear. But a lot of times it doesn't even come down to the percentages. You know, there's times where drivers have much worse percentage wear than someone, but they just have a better overall heat gap than them when it comes to that long run. And when you race side by side like that, you got to use the car that much more. You got to be able to drive it into the corner, not let the car drift up to the wall as the 10 had to do. That heats up the tire each and every time you have to do it. And it's definitely took a little bit out of that tire for him to make those passes. He's done a good job of getting by McCoy and driving away from him, and is gaining a good considerable amount of time, but he's going to need to gain more than he is right now possible.
As these drivers continue to race here at Kentucky. If you're just joining us, we are currently under green flag conditions. We started this race off. We saw how they were racing in the beginning of this run, and it gave the thoughts that this race could stay green, flag to flag, and they could do it once again. This is not a rarity. This is almost turned into the consistency of what is a yellow flag sometimes when we come to the Stars and Stripes. And this is the last race of the round of 8 to see who will run for the championship next week at Bristol. And my name is Sam Dyer. With me is Zach Hall. And Zach, we're about to be hitting it now. 13 laps to go. The gap is 6 seconds. Juan Jimenez going for the one stop. Joshua Robinson, Kyle McCoy, 2-stop strategy for themselves. But a driver in a terrible spot. It's the 31 of Thomas Ogle that looks to be the driver that can be bounced out of running for a championship. And he was the favorite if we made it into our Final Four next week.
He was. He definitely is that favorite if he gets into it, but he's going to have to gain a ton of ground here, man. I mean, you look up in front of him, yeah, he's got Aaron Hill, yeah, he's got Dylan Graham right ahead of him, but then the next car is about 2.5 seconds up the road from him. So, and with fresher tires in the 9 of Kreitz. So, it's just not been a good night for Ogle. Just has not had the speed, has not been able to get the job done, and it could be just the points that keep him out of this and allow other drivers to move on, such as Kyle Bowling, Joshua Robinson, Andrew Hess, and Scott Rickard. Is the way it stands right now. That looks like it possibly will be the Final Four.
Final Four, it's a strong run. Joshua Robinson probably will be crowned the new favorite going into that race, but you never know when you've got the Season 2 champ, Scott Rickard, who's looking to finally get himself back into a championship victory lane, as he has seen so many opportunities thrown away. But this 31 of Thomas Ogle trying to make these passes. He's on the fresher tires, then that of Aaron Hale is 2 lap fresher tires, also faster, better tires than Dylan Grimm. But the big thing here for Thomas Ogle, he needs to make sure that he is at least in that 10th position, 9th position, if he is going to be staying in that 4th place spot. And it's not looking good that he's going to be able to gain that time. It's just too much of a gap with 10 laps to go. It's just looking like a mountain that's just too high to climb.
It does look to be that way. And, you know, the one silver lining we can kind of look at for Ogle, if he can gain some positions here. His teammate Andrew Hess and Scott Rickard have run down Bowling. They have gotten close to this 24. He needs Bowling to lose points. He really needs this 24 to kind of drop back and even possibly back to around where Ross Tatum is in 7th, which isn't out of the picture. The only thing I'm concerned for Ross Tatum is, yeah, he's running similar times to Bowling. He's just got much older tires than Kyle Bowling. So it's not looking likely for Ross to be able to run him down. But, man, this could come down to the wire right here, especially with this 5 and this 32 closing in on the 24. And if Bowling does get it done, what an excellent job by him here tonight. I mean, really just ran a flawless race. Had that pace right at the beginning and went super hard. And it seems like it's going to work out for him here.
And I mean, Zach, we look at the short tracks of this season. We've been harping on Joshua Robinson, Thomas Ogle. Those drivers have been so dominant at the short tracks. For the third driver, who's always been sneakily quick, it's been Kyle Bowling, who's now been caught by that of Andrew Hess. Scott Rickard trying to close in and get an easy pass for himself. But this 24, he has been probably one of the most under-the-radar, consistent drivers in almost every season he's ran for Stars and Stripes. could this finally be the season where he breaks through and takes the championship that for some seasons it's felt like it's in his grasp, but then just falls through?
You're exactly right, Sam, because, again, he's been one of the most consistent drivers season in and season out. If he gets to this Final Four, that consistency could be the prevailing move to help him, get that championship, because Bristol next week is very much an unknown. I mean, like you said, I think Joshua Robinson would be pushed into that favorite position just because his short track program has been amazing this season. He's been one of the best on the short tracks, so you would imagine that would carry over to Bristol, but at the same time, Bristol is such a different short track that I don't really know what to expect heading there, that high bank concrete track. Yeah, it is a short track, but the speeds are very high, so it kind of equates more even to this style of racing, in my opinion, than almost short track racing. So we got a lot of unknowns heading into next week, but I will tell you one thing that's not unknown is this 48 is just once again pulled off a great heist, man, because I just don't think people thought this was going to be doable once again, especially at the pace he's doing it. And with only 5 laps to go, it's a 4.3 second gap. Joshua Robinson's going to have to close in nearly a second here, a lap on him, and that's just not going to happen. It's only about 3/10 the last lap that he gained. And if this 48 can just get back to the line, he's going to win this race.
I mean, he has certainly been the thief of the night. Juan Jimenez, this playoffs, he stole back the first race to start the playoffs off at Charlotte. Then he came back in Auto Club last week, tried a very different strategy than anyone was thinking, went with the one-stop strategy, and here tonight said, hey, it worked last week, let's try a similar run. Let's keep ourselves close, but yet saving fuel, and it works out once again for the 48. 4 laps to go, and for Juan Jimenez, all that he needs is for this race to stay green, and it's practically in his hands. As we look at the gaps in the way that's been ran down, Joshua Robinson only able to close in 2/10 the last time by, and he's going to need to close in a second or more each lap as we got 3 laps to go here at Kentucky.
The chances are getting slimmer and slimmer for someone to beat this 48 as the laps click away. And at this point, he just needs power out of 4. With the gap he's going to have, if he can have just a good little bit of a spurt from that car out of 4, he should be able to roll to the line with the win. But if he does have that car stumble on the back straightaway and doesn't have power through 3 and 4, you're going to see this 10 catch up so quickly that it could be very close when they get to the line. But I tell you, with Jimenez last week, I didn't expect him to be able to save the fuel. I kind of expect him to do it this week with what he did last week. So proving that he has the ability to do it, and once again has really just pulled off something that I think a lot of people in the field did not think was doable.
I mean, people had to change up their strategies from what they thought they had to do just to win a 2-stop strategy. But tonight, it all came down to Juan Jimenez keeping himself close, saving fuel at the same time. And now the question is, does he have fuel for just one more lap? Because at turn number 4, it's your freaky fast white flag for Juan Jimenez, trying to go for win number 3 of the season.
Only 1.5 miles to go here at Kentucky. And what a job it's been done by this 48. Once again, looking for 2 in a row wins. And he's going to be saying, hey, man, if I come back next season and I'm in this thing in the playoffs, you guys better worry about me because I've been so solid.
Juan Jimenez joined the league halfway through. He was one of our favorite drivers to watch with the way that he was just growing, getting faster and faster. Well, in the last 4 weeks, he's found the strategy. Win number 3 for Juan Jimenez as he knocks out that of the 3-time champion Kyle McCoy. And now we've got our Final 4 set and ready for Bristol next week.
What a way to do it from Jimenez. I mean, I'm still kind of like shook up from it because Dylan Grimm, Andrew Medlin on the same strategy. They're going to come home, it looks like, in the 16th and the 18th position here tonight. I mean, it just shows you the 3 different tells of the tape there for the saving of fuel. This 48 has just got it figured out, and I think people are going to have to revise their strategies coming back to Mile and a Half next season and think, hey, will these fuel-saving strategies be available? Because we've seen it's very possible to go all the way, to go all the way green in the Stars and Stripes League. So it makes that strategy very, very good.
This is our 7th race this season to go caution free. Out of now 19 races. Incredible stat to see for these drivers. And for Juan Jimenez, 9th race, 3rd win. He's looking like a threat. But will we see the short track speed next week? Well, time will tell. We'll ask Juan on how he's feeling as we are going to step away. When we come back, we're talking to our top 3 and as well as Spotlight driver to get their thoughts on tonight's race. Thank you for being with us. Don't step away too far as we got the post-race show right after this.
And we are back here, folks, for the post-race show for the Stars and Stripes Racing League for their ARCA Throwback Series. What a night it was. It was wild all around. The driver that got it done 2 times in a row now, saving the fuel, is the 48 of Juan Jimenez. We'll go ahead and get a chat with him about how he did it here tonight once again and stole the show. Hey, Juan, it's Zach up here in the booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, I do.
Well, man, once again, you do the strategy of saving the fuel and keeping the pace up, man. That was, I think, the most impressive thing. Take us through the night because it seemed like you were able to do it much better than others.
Well, it was kind of a team call out there. We all went for the strategy and executed it last week and just thought it could work out here. I was just I think it's actually the wrong call, to be honest, because I think if you look at the Joshua's race, I think he ended up, because he started 10th and I started 4th, so he had to go through the field a couple extra times. So I think he actually ran a faster race than me overall, without accounting for starting position. So I'm not sure that the one stop was the call, but we had the right combination of good qualifying and just we were able to we were like 4th or 5th, like 20 laps into the run still. So it was just a good combination of track position and just overall speed to keep the speed throughout the run.
That it really was, man. It was super impressive to see. And, what do you feel like you figured out so well to do? Because we've seen, your teammates elected a similar strategy, but it just seems like they're having a tougher time keeping, somewhat that pace that you have to keep yourself, not losing as much large amounts of times as they did.
Well, I'm not sure. I think if you look at the telemetry, it might be. I think they're losing a lot of the time in the early run, so I'm not sure. Maybe our clutch traces are a bit different, and we're losing, and like they're being more conservative on entry than I am. I'm not entirely sure what's happening, but I think the other thing is practice. Like I always like to go for maybe a little bit zany strategies. I like to go for the field strategy even when it doesn't. Maybe you shouldn't or you don't have to. So I have a lot of practice running these. So maybe it helps me a little bit to just know when to clutch in, when to clutch back out, how to use partial throttle in the corners to minimize how much fuel you're using. But I'm not entirely sure, to be honest.
It's been super impressive, Juan. We've definitely been watching it as the night went on, and we felt like you were putting yourself in that position once again to do what you did, and it was very, very impressive to see it pulled off once again here 2 weeks in a row, man. And, take us through next week because we know you're not in the Final Four, and it seems like the short tracks really haven't been your strong suit. How do you feel going into Bristol next week?
Well, I think it's cautious optimism because out of all the short tracks, I think Bristol's probably my. I don't want to call it my least worst one, but let's call it my least worst one. So I think I don't know if we'll be competitive with the that we have some insanely fast short track guys like Josh, for example. So I don't know that I'll be competitive for a win necessarily next week, but I think we'll have more solid pace than we've shown throughout the rest of the season. So just knock it on the wood. Bristol's a high variance race. You can always get into a wreck lap 15, and then that's your race over. But I think we have a competitive car. It's just about keeping our noses clean and just maybe figuring out a good strategy.
No doubt, Juan. That has been so impressive to watch you through these playoffs, man, and you're definitely going to be a factor heading into next season if you can get yourself into them. So it's going to be fun to see how that all plays out, man. But before we let you get out here and go celebrate another win, anybody want to send a shout out to?
Yeah, just shout out to my team as always. Like they made the strategy call. I just followed, and it's always a blast with them. Just they're the brains. Really, I don't know. It's just it's a great league. It's a great vibe. I think it's been like 3 races without a caution, so it's just really fun to be racing people the whole time, and it's really competitive and just I think the best league that I've been a part of.
That it really is, man. It's been impressive to see how everybody keeps it green, and it's also how impressive to see you save that fuel, man. But congrats on the win here tonight, Juan. Celebrate it, man, and we'll catch you next week at Bristol.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that was your race winner here tonight at Kentucky Motor Speedway. What a job done by him again. Myself as a driver, I'm super impressed with that. Saving fuel is an art, and he's really got it figured out of how to save fuel and keep the pace. I think that's the most important thing, So I felt like early in the race watching him, that's what he was doing, and I had that assumption. So congrats to him on another win. But now we're going to move on to the guy who came up just a little bit short, went on the two-stop strategy, and that is Josh Robinson. Let's hear from him in the Tin Machine. Hey, Josh, it's Zach up here in the booth. You got a copy?
Got a copy, guys. How's it going?
It is going great, man. Well, I tell you what, it looks like you will be moving on to the Final Four. We're not for sure. We're still waiting on the official, determinations of the Final Four, man. But it seems like you've done enough here with our calculations to be one of those guys contending for a championship next week at Bristol. I mean, before we get to Bristol, how was tonight? Because you had to work your way through the field from that 10th position all the way up to second, and it seemed like of the two-stop strategies, you were the top man of that.
McCoy and I were just talking about how we were a little tired after tonight's race because we were working that wheel pretty good, especially off of 4. That car would start to snap. It wasn't snap loose like the next gen can be, but if you weren't expecting it, you get a little bit of a surprise.
We definitely seen that a few times tonight, man. You were doing an excellent job of managing that for sure and making it look very strong. But now we talk about Bristol, man. I mean, you got Bristol coming up. You've been, in my opinion, one of, if not the best at the short tracks this season. Do you feel like that track falls in your wheelhouse here for a championship?
I wouldn't say it's my best track, but I really like it. And hopefully things go well there. I think the one thing I have in my back pocket, and I don't know if Tom made it into the playoffs or not, but Tom is really strong at Bristol, and I am going to pick his brain all week.
That is always a good way to do it, man. Well, it's going to be fun to see the official results of those points. And like I said, unofficially, we believe you're in. So hopefully we're not making any lies up here. So hopefully we'll be seeing you compete for a championship next week. But excellent run here tonight, Josh. Anybody want to send a shout out to before we let you get out here and get prepared for Bristol next week?
Sure. Shout out to the league for putting this on. Derek, Brian, and Nate put on a good league here. Shout out to my teammates, Andrew, Tom, Brian, and Dylan Glass this season. And shout out to you guys. You guys do a great job with these broadcasts.
Well, Josh, thank you for the kind words, my friend. And hopefully we're talking to you next week as a champion.
I'd love to see it. Oh, and also one more thing. Shout out to Kyle McCoy. That was a really good battle we had there.
That it really was, man. Well, again, like I said, get ready for next week, and we'll talk to you then, bud. All right, folks. Guys. That was Joshua Robinson. Sorry to cut him off there, but that was Robinson in the Tin Machine there. As he had an excellent night here at Kentucky, the top driver of the two-stop strategy, able to really pull that one off to the best ability of his. But now we're going to move on to the third position, the guy who's going to come up short to go fight for another championship. It's the driver that I think a lot of people worried about if we got the Bristol, if he could get himself in there, but just because of his championship stature from the past seasons, let's talk to Kyle McCoy. Hey, Kyle, it's Zach up in the booth. You got a copy?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
It's going great, man. I tell you what, excellent run from you here tonight. Started out not in that lead position. I had to get it from Kyle Bowling there, but it looked like in that moment you might be the driver in position to win it, but it seems like it comes down to strategy here and just coming up a little bit short by being the second driver on that two-stop strategy. Just take us through your night.
Yeah, I kind of blew my qualifying lap. That kind of, fifth doesn't feel like a lot back, but you saw how far Kyle got out there. He was just gone. But for whatever reason, I did a really good job kind of saving tires that first run and had everything really even. I didn't look at the numbers I should have to see where I ended up. But the last two runs, I just used up a little bit too much right rear. Couldn't quite hold, and then obviously a couple kind of small mistakes. I stopped it a little short in my box in the end of the first run, and if I'd done that right, I probably wouldn't have been racing Ross at the beginning of that last stint, which kind of cost me a little bit of time. So you kind of add all that time up together, and you get to a point where you're like, well, you can see how we ended up just a little bit short, because if I wasn't racing those people, if I hit my box correctly, all those things make a big difference. So really fun race. I'm not very good here most of the time, so I'm really happy with the speed we had, but came up a little bit short, and that's okay.
That it is, man. I tell you, it definitely fought all the way down to the end. And, we were so impressed to see that Juan pulled it off once again with that strategy. From the cockpit, when he pit around lap 66, did you feel like, man, I need to do a little something different at that point to try to make up the time here? Because it seemed like the 48 once again was going to do what he did last week at Auto Club.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest with you, I think he caught us all off guard again tonight. I had seen that had happened last week. Unfortunately, I had some technical difficulties, which cost me, basically my shot here this year, which is part of the game, right? Things happen, but I saw that he pulled that same strategy last week with the one stopper. And with everything we've talked about with this car, kind of the, I want to say less tire wear, you can maintain pace a little better. It's a little more momentum based. And so it kind of makes that one stopper a little more viable. I was kind of watching the interval, and I had closed up pretty close to where those guys were when they made their pit stop. So I thought that the difference on the tires in that second run was going to make enough of a difference to put us up ahead of them. I don't know if we all got to racing each other, if we all went harder and didn't pace ourselves right. A lot of different things. He kind of started on his own strategy, and I think that was a huge difference to be just running his own race and not having to race all the rest of us. So I think that made a big difference where he got some clean laps where maybe we didn't. And that's kind of how I think it shook out.
It does seem to be that way, Kyle, man. Well, I tell you, congrats on the valiant effort. A very good run for you tonight, bringing it home in third. Not able to go fight for a championship, of course, but still, like I said, a very good effort to try to go win that race and put yourself in because you had your back against the wall. But before we let you get out of here, anybody want to send a shout to, Kyle?
Yeah, shout out to my team, Cyclo Motorsports. We had a good season. Fortunately, we kind of dwindled down here towards the end, but that's okay. It's been fun. Shout out to you guys for putting on great broadcasts. I'm gonna be interested in going back and watching this one, seeing how everything shook out from a strategy perspective. When we crossed the line going to the checkered, I told Josh good win because I didn't even see Diego on my relatives. So it's gonna be an interesting one to watch. So I appreciate you guys putting it on and putting on a really good show. I'm sure it was probably exciting from watching those two strategies kind of clash together at the end. And shout out to everybody in this league. I'm disappointed to not be in the championship 4, but at the same time, I'm really happy for those guys that are in there because we have lots of good drivers and they all deserve a chance to showcase their skill. So they're going to get a chance to do that next week. I'm going to have fun watching from the rest of the pack while you guys put on a good show, and we'll see how it shakes out.
That it will be, man. It's going to be fun to crown another champion, and thank you to being such a gracious champion as you are here in the past. So, man, congrats on the good run here tonight, and hopefully maybe talk to you from victory lane, even though you're not winning a championship next week, but maybe get that victory to end off your season.
That's the goal, man. I'm not going to be shy about putting myself in the middle of it, so we'll have fun, and we'll go get them. We'll see you next week, boys.
That we will. That was Kyle McCoy, everybody, the driver of the number 28 here tonight, as he brought it home in the third position. Back against the wall for him. Doesn't come home with that checker flag like he was hoping for to get in the Final Four. But like I said, very gracious champion and very much happy for the other 4 that will be fighting for that championship. And now we're going to bring up our spotlight driver here of the night. It's going to be Kyle Bowling, the guy who started in the second position, got out to a 3-second lead early. And we believe from our calculations here, nothing I will say is official. We have not received word yet, but we believe Kyle Bowling will be that 4th and final driver making that Final Four here. So we'll go ahead and bring him up here and talk about his 5th place run here tonight at Kentucky. Hey, Kyle, it's Zach up in the booth. You got a copy?
Yep, I got you.
Well, man, I tell you what, that first run there, you start off in the second position, open up to a 3-second gap. What's going through your mind at that moment?
This is either really good or really bad. I wasn't sure if I was just absolutely destroying my tires or not, but at the same time, so they're going, well, I'm running my pace here. I was continuing to pull away, but I was like, I think at some point he's going to start eating me up. But I'm like, I'm barely turning the wheel through the corner, so I can't be killing it too bad. And it was decently tight at the end of the run. But it went better than I was expecting it to. About 20 laps into the race, I was expecting I was just going to fall off the earth at some point.
Well, man, you definitely did a good job with opening up that gap and heating those tires up, but you did a good job of hanging on to it. You bring it home here 5th tonight. And with Thomas Ogle finishing back in 15th, Kyle Bowling not winning to lock himself in. We believe with our math, again, we're saying this is unofficial because we haven't received word yet, but we believe you're going to be that fourth and final driver fighting for a championship next week at Bristol. How do you feel about that? And how do you feel about the Bristol track here coming up? Because again, this is the first time here in Freaky Fast we've ever seen Bristol be a championship race. How do you feel your chances are? And what do you feel like that race is going to be like?
Well, I mean, I didn't give myself a lot of chances going into tonight, to be honest. Kentucky's not usually one of my favorite tracks, and we ran pretty well. So, Bristol hasn't been bad to me in the past. It's been pretty solid. I knew there was a chance of pointing in tonight, but I thought that was gonna be a really, really tall order. I mean, it still was, but I was surprised to see Tom finish where he did, and I know he is super good at Bristol. So hopefully I'm not a wasted spot next week. Hopefully we're competitive.
Well, man, I think you'll definitely be right in the mix as you always are, Kyle. It's always impressive to see what type of performances you put up, man. And it seems like tonight you've got it done in our books to get to that Final Four. And hopefully that's the way it plays out. But before we let you get out here and go get prepared for Bristol next week, anybody want to send a shout out to?
Well, just thanks to you guys for putting on a great broadcast. Thanks to these guys, this league. It's a fun league to run in. Very clean racing, very respectful racing, and it's a fun time coming here every week.
Well, it's a fun time up here in the booth, man. I'm sure it's fun out in the track, and hopefully next week we may be talking to you as a champion, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, folks, that was your spotlight driver here tonight, Kyle Bowling. What a job done by him. It seems like he'll be the fourth and final driver, making it into the Final Four to go fight for a championship live here next week at Bristol Motor Speedway on Freaky Fast Broadcasting for the Stars and Stripes Throwback Series. I mean, it's been a great run up to this point, and we cannot wait to get back to crown that champion. But before we talk about next week, let's go ahead and look at them unofficial results to see where your favorite drivers finished out the night at the Distillery 200 here for 133 laps. It was definitely one that came down to the wire, and once again, another green flag race. I believe that brings us up to 7 races now this season where we went completely wire to wire. That's impressive, and I think that's a feat that all the drivers out there should be patting themselves on the back. It's definitely super impressive to see how that's played out. But Juan Jimenez bringing home another victory here. Third one of the playoffs, and another one here by saving fuel back-to-back weeks at their Auto Club last week. Able to get it done and put it in victory lane. Second place going to be Joshua Robinson. Third is going to go to Kyle McCoy, just coming up short to make the Final Four. Fourth is going to be Andrew Hess, one of the other drivers, joining him in that Final Four there with Kyle Bowling in the 5th place position. Sixth is going to be Scott Rickard, another driver joining the Final Four there. Seventh is going to go to Ross Tatum. Eighth is going to be Dylan Glass. Ninth is going to be the Ada Jason Gratton. And around the hour, Freaky Fast Top 10, it's Zach Kreitz. And as we look through the leaderboard, there's definitely lots of drivers who said what could have been. I looked at Dylan Grimm back there in 18th. His saving fuel strategy did not work out. Andrew Medlin, his saving fuel strategy didn't work out in 16th. And then, most of all, in that 15th position, Tom Ogle. That one, I think, stings the most. He looked to be possibly the favorite heading into the playoffs with his into the regular season. Just could not get it done here tonight in Kentucky and put himself into a position to possibly be the favorite at Bristol, because we all heard everybody talks about how good Ogles be. I'm sure, he's not going to go fight for a championship next week, but he will go fight for a victory because of how good he is at that Bristol Motor Speedway. So don't count him out for that, getting into victory lane, because as a driver, you always want to go win, even if it's just a race and not a championship. So it's going to be fun to watch how that plays out. I got to say thank you, of course, to Sam Dyer here for calling the race alongside me, Zach Hall, here tonight, and also our producer, Robert Moyer Jr., up here in the background. It's been a pleasure to call all the action throughout this season, and we only got one more left to close it all out. It's going to be a blast. You don't want to miss it. It's the last great Coliseum, the Bristol Motor Speedway, for, a Final Four race. It's going to be nervous, nail-biting moments all around when they drop the green flag. We don't know what's going to happen, so make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification button so you can be notified when we go live next Thursday for our championship race. Thank you to Stars and Stripes. Thank you to all the league sponsors for all they do also. It's been a pleasure to call tonight's action. But don't forget, we also got more action going on throughout the week. We got the World Series of Sim Racing happening on Saturday nights. They're going to be heading into their second chase race of their 5 race chase. It's going to be fun to see who can get the points there to push themselves in a better position for those final 3 races with that next gen car. And then also we got the ISRC on Monday nights. Tuesday nights is back with the Full Sin Racing Series. And then we just concluded Wednesday nights with the Wicked Racing League. So it's coming down to the wire here. We're finishing out leagues, and we got to thank all the fans for tuning in and week out. But as I always say, thank you for tuning in. Stay freaky fast.